True what the chief said, Meadows, about you're getting 8 years and a dishonorable discharge for stealing $40?
I didn't get no $40.
You didn't get it?
No. They caught me right while I was trying to lift it from the box. I didn't get it.
You mean to tell me they gave you 8 years and a DD for $40 and you didn't even get it? Boy, they really stuck it to him, didn't they, Mule?
They sure did.
Well, they really stuck it to you, kid.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Stick it in and break it off.
Welcome to the Cinematic Flashback Podcast. Get ready to hop into the Wayback Machine as we journey through the wild, bold, and unforgettable films of the 1970s. Each episode, we break down a classic movie or a forgotten gem, seeing how it performed then and now, and wrapping things up by asking, did it groove through the decades or did it lose its beat? I am your host, Chuck Bryan, and today we are reviewing Hal Ashby's The Last Detail from 1973, starring Jack Nicholson, Otis Young, and Randy Quaid. And joining me on shore patrol duty is Matt Sargent. Hey, buddy, do you like your cheese melted on your burger?
Chuck, you always melt my cheese.
Well, it's just as easy to get it like you like it. See, was that so hard?
That was my very bad Jack Nicholson imitation.
It was recognizable.
Hey, welcome to March. March is our road movie month, and we will feature today's film, The Last Detail, and the next episode with Scarecrow. I don't know about you, but I love road movies. They are generally good vehicles. See what I did there? That tell a story about getting to some destination, and really, the journey is where we see the themes of growth or change. Do you have any favorite road movies?
I like a good road movie, but to be honest, I might need a little more action, like Mad Max.
Mad Max, that would have been a great road movie to put in. I think every Thanksgiving, we always watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I know you've seen that one, right?
I have, and I do like that movie, but it is a bit of a tragedy when it comes down to it. Well, maybe all good comedies are.
It is a great comedy. And once Steve Martin gets to that destination and he realized that John Candy has no destination, even though I've seen it a million times, it gets me every single time. And today's movie is somewhat like that, in that the journey is completely the story and the ending is, well, we'll get to that. But this was my first time watching it. How about you?
This wasn't my first time, but I'll be honest with you, I did not remember how the movie ended. So for me, it was almost like watching it for the first time.
That's good. It's getting a fresh reaction from you today. Who do we have talking to us?
We have a review from our Facebook page. We need to remember to check on those reviews when we get them.
Oh, yeah.
Please help us by posting constantly about the podcast, and be sure to annoy your friends and internet friends by talking about us nonstop. This one is short and sweet and to the point. Christy Hood writes, if you love movies, this podcast is an absolute must follow. Thanks, Chrissy, for taking a moment to post your comment, which is a clear statement and call to action. I like it. And I will say it again. Go ahead and become the annoying one-topic person who can't stop telling the world about our little podcast.
Christy, obviously, we love 70s movies, and we hope that we give you some new films to check out. Before we get into the production details of The Last Detail, we do need to take a quick break.
What the hell did he do, kill the old man?
Robbery.
How much did he lift?
$40. Tried to lift the polio contribution box.
Yeah?
Polio box is the old man's old lady's favorite do-gooder project. She took it very seriously.
Where are we going, Chief?
Portsmouth Naval Prison. Good duty for you guys.
They're gonna get him there all right. But first they gotta take care of a few details along the way.
Okay, Buddusky. You're the honcho.
I consider myself in jeopardy with you, man. Understand? In jeopardy. He's a prisoner and we're taking him to the jailhouse. And you have a tendency to forget that. You're a menace, man.
was just trying to show the kid a good time, you know what I mean?
He can't have a good time. It ain't in him.
Let me tell you how it is, Mill. We got a friend here that we'd like to do a favor for. He's going on a trip.
It's just him?
Just him.
Well, what kind of party after?
Now, don't worry about a thing. I'm hustling this guy, understand? I got him right where I want him.
Maybe he's hustling you.
Oh, yeah, maybe he is, but this is not the time to argue about it, because if I don't win, we don't leave New York, eh?
We're going to a party.
Yeah?
Huh? This could be the big one, eh, Meadows? All we gotta do is get rid of that silly-looking creep there, and we got these 3 chicks all to ourselves. Doing a man's job. Talking to ships. He looks like a big penguin, don't he? Watch out for children.
He sure is having a good time.
Sure is, and you said it wasn't in him. Huh? All right.
What do they do in this man's Navy? Everything they can.
Would like to drink a toast to Batman, Superman, and the Human Torch.
And that was the trailer for The Last Detail. Matt, we are in our spoiler-free territory, but before we get into the weeds, could you give us a back-of-the-box description of The Last Detail and let the listeners know what to expect?
Sure, Chuck. This film was directed by Hal Ashby and written by Robert Towne. This gem of a film stars Jack Nicholson in a 1973 Best Actor Academy Award-nominated performance as Buddusky, a street-tough sailor. When he is tasked with escorting a charge, actor Randy Quaid, to naval prison, Buddusky decides they're never going to make it unless he and his partner, Otis Young, show the young screw-up one last good time.
The Last Detail was released on December 12, 1973. Robert Towne, who we last discussed in our Chinatown episode, wrote the screenplay based on the novel by Daryl Paniskin, who also wrote Cinderella Liberty, which was also turned into a film starring James Caan. The Last Detail was directed by Hal Ashby, as you said. Last night, Matt, I rented the 2018 documentary film called Hal. Good documentary, highly recommended. In the 1970s, he directed 7 hit movies, including The Landlord, Harold and Maude, The Last Detail, Shampoo, Bound for Glory, Coming Home, starring Jane Fonda, who we last talked about in Clute, and Being There, starring Peter Sellers. Countless people have recommended to us that we should review Harold and Maude, including your coworker, Jeff Panano, and my coworker, Aaron Mullinex. We might need to try to get that one on the listing of ones to see.
I agree.
So Ashby started out, learned this last night, he started out as many great 70s directors did. He started out as a film editor, and he worked closely with Norman Jewison, notably in The Heat of the Night, and it earned Ashby his only Academy Award.
The winner is Hal Ashby for The Heat of the Night.
To repeat the words of a very dear friend of mine last year when he picked up his Oscar, I only hope that we can use all of our talents and creativity towards peace and love. Thank you.
The Last Detail was well received in 1973, and today it holds a solid 87% for both the critic and audience's scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Robert Towne finished this screenplay in 1970, but I don't know how else to say this. It contained too much profanity to be shot as written.
Hi, Ed. I take 30 cents worth of beer and a glass and the same from the shipmates here.
Ed don't work here no more. Let me see your IDs.
How come?
Because this kid ain't old enough. Boss would lose his license for sure if I serve that kid.
I'm gonna kick your ass around the block for drill, man.
You try it and I'll call the shore patrol.
I am the shore patrol.
I am the shore patrol. Now give this man a beer.
I don't want a beer anymore.
You're gonna have a beer!
Come on, man.
I feel like one right now.
Yes. Come on, man. Come on.
Columbia Pictures waited nearly 2 years to get Towne to tone it down because in the first 7 minutes, there's something like 342 F-bombs. But we know about the Hays Code being replaced by movie ratings. Suddenly, the standards for foul language relaxed, or it got moved into a certain rating.
Right.
And the profanity was left in. Towne stated that there was so much profanity because this is how people talk when they're powerless. And in this case, you have Jack Nicholson and Otis Young's character. They're powerless against the machinations of the Navy. This is the only way that they talk. So Buddusky and Mulhall, they don't agree with Randy Quaid's jail sentence, but they really have no legal ways to help him. The swearing isn't just for color, it is frustration. The guys see this injustice clearly, and the only power left to them is to complain.
What's funny is until we kind of started talking about how much swearing was in the movie, I didn't really notice it. Because so early in my career, I developed software and did deployments of that software for the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked closely with your senior chiefs and your enlisted guys. And I think that's part and parcel for any of the armed services, and maybe most strongly in the Navy. I don't know. Our listeners can weigh in on that. Probably some Army guys or Air Force guys might weigh in saying the same thing. But I will tell you that at one point in my career, I washed the coffee pot in the chief's mess. I had, up to that point, never heard so many swear words strung together in my life. And I was just a young kid out of college going, man, that coffee pot looks disgusting. I'm going to be a nice guy and wash it. And let me tell you what, that is the wrong thing to do.
No, I've heard tales of this. I mean, you've always heard swears like a sailor.
Yeah.
This film gives you a clear demonstration of swearing like a sailor,
sure,
especially from Jack Nicholson.
And part of this is also, I mean, it goes back to the 18th century, age of sail. Your average, what they called a British tar,
mm-hmm.
your average sailor on a British ship was a pretty rough character. And their language was, sometimes a mixed pigeon from people from all over the world, but it always had a large number of swear words in it. So I think you're right. Part of it is showing this utter frustration. It also shows sort of, at one point described themselves as Navy lifers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like, hey, this is our one way to kind of thumb our nose at the system that we really can't do anything about. And at one point, even the character Mule talks about how the Navy was best thing that ever happened to him. Got him out of the town he lived in. And it's very low key on that. But I think we've all worked at jobs where maybe we're a little frustrated and it comes out in the language. So it didn't really bother me much. And I can see how, though, in the days when this was released, that might have been quite shocking because your average person didn't run into that kind of swearing.
I don't know. I kind of think that maybe with all the other things that we have seen in our film reviews where we're like, whoa, this must have been really, maybe it wasn't as shocking. Maybe people are just saying, hey, look, this is how people talk. This is how people talk around me all the time.
I think definitely the rating system was being used. This was a movie that was intended for adults to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's adult subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's adult comedy in some parts, and it's adult serious things. And that's one of the things we were just going to talk about is, the sentence that Meadows gets for stealing $40. He loses his pay, demoted to E1, which is the very lowest you can get demoted to. He's ultimately going to get a dishonorable discharge after serving 8 years in the naval prison at Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is evidently pretty rough place. I mean, think of the kind of people that would go to prison. So he's going to serve a pretty tough sentence for stealing $40. It seems excessive.
Yeah, I think that's what Hal Ashby was really trying to drive home. And as we learned later, he didn't ever even get the $40.
Yeah, that was one of the most ridiculous parts is that they quote unquote caught him before he actually got the money out of the box.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for Randy Quaid's character, Meadows, he's stealing from the polio charitable donation box, which happens to be the base commander's wife's charity that she is responsible for. Now, Randy Quaid's character is being charged above and beyond by the base commander.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of things going on here. One, it was a person with absolutely no power, an enlisted guy.
Mm-hmm.
The person who was defending him wasn't really up to snuff. Clearly, it's just a machine that's running, and I think that's part of the whole thing, is that you're just a cog in this wheel. To me, the whole part of the movie where these guys go, well, we're getting per diem every day to take them, so let's not get there as fast as possible. And there's nobody really saying, hey, this should take you 2 days to get up and 2 days to get back.
Mm-hmm.
This is somebody is saying, well, just put in for your money, how long it takes, and they take basically the slowest way they can get there so they can have all this per diem and stuff. So it's a tragedy, but it's kind of the whole impetus for the whole movie. So we have some pretty big stars in this movie and some people that we never get to see again.
Yeah, and first we have Jack Nicholson as signalman first class Billy Badass Buddusky.
Buddusky. Always wanting to call me badass.
Last time we talked about Nicholson was in Chinatown. He is, in my opinion, on his game here. This is a preview of the Jack to come. He turned down a role in The Godfather to be in this role. This could be one of my favorite roles for Jack Nicholson, although I am still really partial to his role in Chinatown. What were your thoughts on Nicholson in this film?
Let me put it into the right kind of words.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to our audience here. I'm not trying to say that it wasn't a great performance. It was a great performance. I think Jack Nicholson inhabited this role as good as any actor probably could. My beef comes when you sort of want to know more about this character and you're left confused.
Mm-hmm.
I found it a little hard to follow and not very convincing. Was he really street tough? Because in some parts he looked like he was just bluster, but really didn't have a lot to back it up with. When someone insists on their own nickname,
mm-hmm.
that's always a red flag. It means that they didn't actually earn it.
Right.
They want that. It's not somebody like he goes around getting into fights and he's a badass. It's like, hey, that's my name, and I think people should call me badass, so that's what I'm going to use. And so to me, there was a whole wealth of things that could have been explored about that character that weren't explored. Not Jack Nicholson's fault, but it only went so far. That's sort of my problem.
Fair enough. I think the badass nickname was one he completely concocted for himself. He definitely seems to be more bark than bite.
Sure.
Both he and Otis Young's characters, I believe that they are E6 or E7. So they're almost at the top of the mid-level ranks before they get into the senior. So these guys have been in for a while. A fresh second lieutenant in the Marines does not intimidate them because they know the system better than he does.
Yeah.
He is definitely a lot of bark in this film. I think to balance Buddusky's bark, we have Otis Young as gunner mate's first class Richard Mule Mulhall.
Hey, man. Mulhall. Mulhall. Understand?
Yeah.
Listen, man. Call me Mule. Everybody else does. Mule.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
I think without Mulhall, the movie really doesn't work because it almost makes Buddusky unbearable. I love how so often you talk about a character needs a foil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in The Deer Hunter, Michael needed Stan. Otherwise, Michael would almost be unbearable without someone to focus his intensity. And I think Otis Young kind of plays it, but he's not despicable like Stan was.
I really like how Young portrayed Mule. And the counterpoint to Mule is, if you watch that character, calling him Mule was 100% on brand, right?
How's that?
He's tough. He's quiet. He just buckles down and does what needs to be done. It's pretty clear that in his career, people started calling him Mule probably initially because of his last name, and then later because of the characteristics he showed. So that was, to me, a counterpoint of two nicknames that you kind of pick up on. One, the guy's trying to get you to use the badass nickname, and the other one is call me Mule, because that's what everybody calls me. You don't have he didn't have to say it more than once, right?
Right.
I just thought Otis Young, he was a great actor.
Well, we almost did not have Otis Young in this role. There was actually another actor cast, but other actors who wanted to play him was Bud Cort, who was in MASH. He was the young corpsman that Frank Burns was antagonizing. He also played Harold in Harold and Maude. Also, Robert Englund, who I always have to remember is not Freddy Krueger, but that's what he's best known for. Rupert Cross was actually cast to play Mulhall, but just as the filming was about to go into production, Cross received the news that he had diagnosed with terminal cancer. Ashby postponed production for a week. Cross decided that he didn't want to do the film. Just another tragic case of where we have actors who are involved in films, they're about to be in big roles. Life happens. And that was when they cast Otis Young to play Mulhall.
Well, like I said, I thought he did a wonderful job.
Let's talk about Larry Meadows, played by Randy Quaid. I was blown away by Randy Quaid in this film. First of all, I had no idea that Randy Quaid was making movies back in 1972, 73 when this film came out. He was so innocent in this film, almost naive. What did you think of 6'4" Randy Quaid in this film?
I thought it was a stroke of genius to cast him in this role, because he was able to sort of give this Baby Huey-esque innocence and goofiness. It was great, and it was funny, and it was also at other parts, poignant. I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I honestly can't think. A lot of times you pose these questions to me before we do these, but who would you think is in a different role? Who could have played this role possibly better or worse? And I rarely come up with an idea for somebody who did, but I really thought about this one, and I thought about this one, and I honestly can't imagine anyone else playing that role. I mean, he was really very perfect for it. But in the book, I think the physical description of Meadows is probably not a 6'4" dude, but maybe just a normal sized guy with, maybe some of the same qualities. But Randy Quaid being so big and so much bigger than the two guys that were charged with guarding him, it was, right off the bat, it's a physical hilarity, because it's just so funny.
House sure does look swell, Clark.
Thanks, Eddie. I hope it enhances your holiday spirit. Dear Catherine. Eddie?
Oh, the house is gorgeous, Clark.
Eddie?
I hope you didn't do this all on our account, Clark. Kids, come on out here and see what Uncle Clark's done to the house.
If you only know Randy Quaid from the Christmas Vacation and Vacation films, you owe it to yourself to watch this film, if for nothing more, but to watch Randy Quaid play someone that when you're done, you're going to be amazed, and you'll walk away. You may like this film, you may not like this film, but you will say that Randy Quaid was amazing.
Yeah, it really makes you think that family, the Quaid family, has some serious acting chops in it. So,
what's in the water they drink? I mean, really.
It's nice to see, because he does play a funny guy, though. I mean, even in the I laugh so hard when I think about those vacation films and some of the lines. They're
awesome.
They're just so funny. And Randy Quaid delivers some of these lines. It's just hilarious. There are very many funny parts of this film. It is in a lot of ways, it's sort of a nonstop comedy to some extent, with an undertone of tragedy, which I think is probably the classic definition of a comedy. It's not funny unless there's sort of a seriousness that makes it worth paying attention to.
There were some other actors. They were minor, but I did want to talk about them that showed up in this film. My favorite was Carol Kane, who played the young prostitute in the last act of the film. You'll know Carol Kane from another fun Christmas movie called Scrooged, where she plays the ghost of Christmas past. She's also in the current Star Trek Strange New Worlds series as the chief engineer. What do you think of her in Scrooge? You got to love that one.
Oh, one of my favorite performances because he keeps bashing him.
We're fighting again. Let's not fight anymore. Oh, look, Frank. What is it? I can't find the car.
Hitting him and stuff. It's just funny. And it was just a very funny role. And immediately, as soon as I saw my wife and I watched this film together, and as soon as we saw her, we're like, click, click, click. Who is it? Who is it? And then it popped in my head, Scrooge. After we had thought about it for a little while. She's appeared in a few things over the years besides just Scrooged and some other. She's been in a bunch of things. She has a very unique voice, usual. The other one that we saw, they were in the chanting scene with the
Buddhist monks,
the Buddhist light or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Was Gilda Radner. We were like, that's Gilda Radner. What is she doing in there? And obviously she's put her name on a list for extras, and they called her up, and she's such a unique looking person. Such a wonderful talent that it just shines through, just even for a few instants on the screen. You can't miss her.
I'll sit through and I'll watch credits. I will admit that 70s credits are pretty easy to sit through because they're usually 2 or 3 minutes, not 15 minutes of special effects. And so I saw Gilda Radner's name come up, and I immediately had to go back and find where she was in the film. So I did a little Google cheating and then went back and saw it. And you're right. Once you see it, you cannot unsee her.
Before we go on to the next actor, I just want to make a point to what you were just describing, which is one of the best parts of doing 70s films like this is to look at the credits and pick out names of early performances of some of the biggest stars in the world. It's so much fun to see in the credits way down, right before first key grip, name of some superstar that we have nowadays who just played an extra or some barely talking person. And that is one of the best parts of watching these 1970s films is to see those people that went on to be huge stars.
When we watched Magnum Force, I mentioned that there were 2 actors who were in the RoboCop movie. And as I was watching the credits, I saw Nancy Allen's name in the last detail. She plays Officer Lewis in RoboCop. And so I had to go back again. This is one I had to do a search on to find a picture of her because she is so young that I would not have recognized her had I not seen her name in the credits.
That's funny.
So, Matt, I do want to talk about real quickly before we wrap this section up about the filming locations. So you and I, we live in southeastern Virginia in a part that's known as Hampton Roads. It's comprised of multiple cities, including Virginia Beach, where you live and I work, Chesapeake, where I live, and Norfolk, where you work. I was surprised to learn that the Norfolk Naval Base was not shown in this film. The Navy did not want to be associated with all of the swearing in the film that today's sailor does not swear, so they would not let them use Norfolk Naval or Portsmouth Prison, and so they had to use locations in Canada. But I'm going to swear to you, I can't confirm or deny this. I've looked and I've seen it both ways, but the outside of the bus station, to me, looks like the old one that used to be on Granby and Monticello. If you're listening and if you know if this was really the old bus station, write us. Let us know, because this might be a hill that I die on.
I don't think there's any question it was that place. Then that's not on the Navy base. That's just a Norfolk filming location.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, they could have pulled out a camera and done that scene with or without any city permission, because there's not a lot going on. Some buses moving around. It looked like it was filmed at 6 o'clock in the morning or something. So I don't think there's any, I mean, yes, a lot of the major scenes and the scenes on what looked like a Navy base would not have been filmed on Norfolk Navy base, but there's no reason why it wouldn't have been in the Norfolk bus station. It would be easy to do it there, and I think we looked at the pictures sort of from the movie and nowadays, and the buildings line up exactly. You know,
Yeah.
they're new things.
Yeah.
But the actual framing of the building is exactly the same. So
It looks so similar to me.
they're exactly the same. They just
Mhm.
have different businesses in them. So yeah, no, I think that it's perfectly plausible that they might have filmed this part in Norfolk and then gone, okay, well, let's take it all up to this crazy base in Canada. They show a lot of very cold weather at the Navy base, which, you know, I'll be honest with you, here in Norfolk and Virginia Beach, you know, we'll get it's cold right now for a few weeks, but it isn't cold like they were portraying it in the movie. So clearly they were in Canada during the winter filming a lot of this because it looked really cold.
The entire time they look cold.
Yes.
I mean,
it was so funny. Like I said, I don't think there's any question. I think that was 100% match. I think that brings us to the point where we might have another word from one of our possible sponsors.
And we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Matt.
And I'm Dirk.
We're just out here riding our bikes, circling the cul-de-sac, talking about the movies, music, and TV shows that we all love and remember, but just as easily could have fallen by the wayside and been forgotten.
These are the tales of creative chaos, last-minute miracles, and lightning strikes no one saw coming. So settle in, because every legend has a backstory, and sometimes the best ones start by mistake. This is where we talk about and discuss
the accidental legends.
Cheese melted in there for you? Sure. It ain't melted at all. Send it back. It's all right. Send the thing back, Meadows. You're paying for it. It's all right. Meadows, have it the way you want it. Waiter! Melt the cheese on this for the chief, would you? Thank you. See, Meadows? Trust is easy to have it the way that you want it.
And welcome back. The Last Detail is currently streaming on Tubi for free, and it is available to rent at all of the usual rental locations. And I want to let our listeners know that if they want to see the film, please go ahead and pause now and go watch it. We're going to wait for you until you finish it, because we're moving into a section now where we're going to discuss the film. And you know, Matt, there may be spoilers.
Inadvertently.
Yeah. But it happens. Okay. I do want to describe the poster for this film because I really like it. And it is just this photo-based one sheet. Now, one sheet is the standard size of a movie poster. And it's featuring a shirtless Jack Nicholson as Billy Buddusky. And he's wearing his sailor hat, no shirt, holding a cigar, and he's just looking straight at you, almost challenging you. To the right is written, "No expletive symbols. Navy's going to give some poor additional expletive symbols. Kid, 8 years in the expletive brig without me taking him out for the time of his expletive life." That's already telling you there's going to be a lot of language in this film right on the very poster before you go in. But Matt, the premise is brutally simple. We have two lifers. They're given brig chaser detail. Now, a brig chaser is an assignment that is carried out where they are going to escort someone who's either in prison to some kind of appointment, or in this case, they're escorting a junior enlisted to the brig. What immediately stands out isn't Meadows' mistake, but rather the wildly disproportionate punishment. $40, 8 years, dishonorable discharge.
Well, the movie does a good job of showing what the audience considers an excessive sentence for what should have been a misdemeanor, but then steadily shows Meadows constantly stealing stuff, somewhat in comic relief, but slowly showing us that Meadows has a compulsion in what some professionals might call kleptomania. And this is further solidified by him telling the trouble he got into back home with shoplifting. So, I think the injustice is absolutely understood by the audience, but then it's actually even made worse by realizing that sending this kid to prison for 8 years is not going to help his compulsion. It is a psychological problem. He needs help, and this was essentially a victimless crime, because we find out later he didn't even steal the $40. He didn't even get it. So the idea that he would have to go serve 8 years and be dishonorably discharged when, maybe a year in a psych institution with therapy might be able to cure him of this compulsion, because clearly, we see through the film, he steals anything he can get his hands on for a good long time.
Once they're on the train, there is a scene where Meadows is sleeping or dozing, and both Mule and Buddusky realize that he has carrots that he's stolen off of an old lady's shopping cart stuffed up his sleeve. They go to say something, and it startles him, and he wakes up. I don't think he knows where he's at, but he runs. And so they have to drag him back to his chair. I think this is where it starts to change, where they start to sympathize with him, where we start to learn more about Mule, we learn more about Buddusky, but we also learn about Meadows. It's nearly indistinct unless you have subtitles, because he's crying and I could not make it out. But what he's talking about in that scene is that he cannot help himself but shoplift. He will steal models, and he doesn't even know how to put a model together. He's always grabbing stuff that he doesn't really even care about or that he doesn't even need. He didn't need $40. He had money in the bank until they made him forfeit all of his pay. And then ultimately, he's now broke as he's going into the brig. And I think at this point, Buddusky says, wow, they really stuck it to you. They stuck it in deep, and then they broke the handle off. From that point, they are sympathizing with this young 18-year-old whose life is basically over.
To some extent, I still stick by my thing, is that Buddusky needed this trip virtually as much as Meadows did. And I call back to the very beginning of the film. They're trying to get Buddusky to talk to the commanding officer, and he's basically saying no.
Yeah.
He's being very disrespectful, very rebellious. He clearly doesn't seem like he's in a good place. So the initial plan is to try to get the guy up there and then take his per diem and spend it. They make a shift, but at the same time, the plan of letting loose is part of Buddusky's plan all along. But again, I call back to why. There should be more reason why Buddusky needs to do this. Something happened.
Well, the rest of the film, once we've established that this injustice, and quickly see that they're going to show this kid the time of his life. And there's all these series of episodes as they are traveling up the eastern seaboard. I think they first take a bus out of Norfolk, they hop on a train at some point, and they get off at DC, then they go to New York, where they come across the Buddhist monks, and then they're in Boston, and then eventually they're in Portsmouth. For me, my favorite stop had to be when they were in Washington, because this is where, they're just trying to get something to eat. Meadows asks, well, do you think that they will melt the cheese on the hamburger? The hamburger has cheese on it, but it's not melted. Jack Nicholson tells them to go back and melt that cheese, and it's just as easy.
But he tells Meadows to tell them.
Yes.
He's trying to toughen up Meadows for what's coming in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
And then they go to get a belly full of beer. He wants 30 cents of beer.
That was hilarious.
That price just blew my mind.
That was so funny. And then the cans are actually, I don't know if you probably don't remember them, but I remember them getting, not that I drank beer back then, but I remember in the 70s going to the cooler and getting a can of beer and giving it to my dad or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And the cans were cans. They were like cans of beans. They were that kind of metal. They weren't this flimsy aluminum they have now. Right. So in the old days, they used to show somebody crushing. I think they showed Quint crushing a can of beer.
Yeah.
Well,
that was pretty impressive.
It was hugely impressive. Nowadays, it's a joke because once it's empty, there's nothing to it. But back then, you were crushing an actual tin can of beer with a flip top that came out and then cut your foot. But yeah, it was funny to seeing some of that. I will say not every stop was fun because they make a stop to go see Meadows' mom. And they make the trek out to her house. They don't know if she's there. This is before they had cell phones or whatnot. They get to her house. She's not there.
What's wrong?
We let that kid go off by himself. He could get away.
Don't get excited, Mule. That kid ain't going nowhere.
What makes you so sure?
Well, you know him.
Then where is he?
Huh?
Where is he?
There. Get your in an uproar, Mule. Meadows ain't going nowhere without us. See, let me tell you something about a kid like Meadows. He's the kind of guy, he's going to the brig. Secretly, he's probably glad. On the outside, too many things can happen to him. All of it bad. This way, the worst part's already happened. So he's probably glad.
It turns out his mom is gone for the day.
Yeah.
So they go back to her house and say, hey, do you want to go in and wait around? And they ultimately, the door opens and you're kind of greeted by what I will just say is a very clear indication of Meadows' childhood, which is not pleasant.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that. Most of the rest of the stops are fun and a little more lighthearted and getting into mischief and also trying to teach Meadows some life skills.
Finally, we get to New Hampshire, and Meadows says something like, well, you know, if it was summer, we could have a picnic. And then, boom, there you are. You're out in the park. It's freezing cold, snow on the ground. I think this was actually filmed in Hyde Park in Toronto during the winter. They were really, really cold, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah.
Buddusky just can't really get anything quite right. You know, they go off and they're going to cook hot dogs, but then they're talking and they look around. And again, Meadows is not where he was. He's off about a few hundred yards and he looks over at Buddusky and all of a sudden he starts giving him the flag signals.
Yeah.
You hear Buddusky translating it. Bravo, Yankee, end message.
Bye-bye.
I didn't catch it the first time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And he takes off running.
Oh, it was hilarious.
But they do deliver him
to
the prison. They're not even given a moment to give him one last goodbye. They just take him.
Yeah. I think the part of him running away at the end was necessary because if he hadn't tried to escape, I think it would have been really hard for them to bring him to the prison. So I think him trying to escape kind of steeled them.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder, how are these guys going to be able to put it together to take him to the prison? It's difficult.
Kind of like I said earlier with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's kind of a bittersweet ending.
Yeah. So, Chuck, I'll ask you this question. Does The Last Detail still groove today, or did it lose its beat?
I'm going to tell you, I had no idea what I was getting into when I first started watching this film. At first, I was a little bit worried about the amount of profanity that this film is known for. But like you said, it feels like it fit the film. It felt like it fit the character. And after learning and watching the Hal Ashby film, he makes films about humans, the human condition, and being decent people. And this film fits into a Hal Ashby film. So yes, Meadows stole, but the punishment turns a mistake into a life sentence. I really think that Quaid's performance is what really sells this film. It's his performance that sticks with you. For me, it grooves. And what did you think, Matt?
I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I certainly, as I said before, I really enjoyed Randy Quaid's performance on here, and I will agree with you 100%. If you are at all a fan of Randy Quaid and you haven't seen this film, you will do backflips because he does a great job. And while I understand the other points that you were saying and that you feel like it grooves, I'm going to disagree to me.
Okay.
And remember, we were talking about what it was before and how it might be received nowadays. So I'm saying it's not that it didn't groove then. I think it did. But I think today's film, it's less. And here are my reasons. The film moves too slowly. And to me, it fails to really make the case that makes me care about the characters, right? And particularly, I care about Randy Quaid. I just think there's a big hole in the Buddusky character. I want to care about him, and I really don't. While the performances were good, I felt like there should have been more about Buddusky's life for us to care about him. This trip seems like something he needed as much as Meadows, but you never know why. You're kind of left, why is this so important to him? Because it clearly is. He's driving it the entire time, and maybe he had a little brother that passed away. Maybe he had a family that he never got to know. All of this would have been something that you could have sunk your teeth into. The character Mule was played perfectly, and to me was the best performance of the movie, maybe behind Quaid, obviously. I just really liked his portrayal of this steady dude who's faced the world, a world where things might not have gone his way. Quaid was a close second and really captured the toddler-like innocence of the character. I mean, he did a great job. So I'll not say it grooves today. I think it may have been groundbreaking in its day, but I think today's audience, I think you expect a little bit more.
And there you have it. You know, we're going to disagree on this one, but I am glad that we got a chance to watch it and talk about it today. So that just about wraps it up for The Last Detail. Join us next time as we continue this theme of road movies with Jerry Schatzberg's criminally forgotten 1973 film Scarecrow, starring Gene Hackman and Al Pacino. And coming in April, we got another pair of films, The Getaway, which I watched this week, starring Steve McQueen and Ally McGraw. This is a Sam Peckinpah film, and I invite you to go and do a little reading on Peckinpah to get his style from like The Wild Bunch. And then I pulled one of our movies out. I pulled out 5 Easy Pieces. I'm going to reschedule that later because on the Facebook group, The Movies of the 70s, they were talking about Charlie Varick, starring Walter Matthau. After our Pelham 123 episode, I was just so gung-ho on Walter Matthau.
Oh, yeah. He's amazing.
And Charlie Varick is directed by Dirty Harry director Don Siegel. I think we both liked the first Dirty Harry film, and I think Don Siegel had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to watching all of these.
Yeah, I'm with you on looking forward to watching them because here's the deal. I don't think I've seen The Scarecrow, The Getaway, or Charlie Varick. So this is going to be great for me. This is all new stuff for me. So
good stuff.
First impressions. So
good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Let us know what you thought about The Last Detail. You can do so on our website, www.cinematicflashback.com, or be like Christy Hood and connect with us on our Facebook page. We really appreciate getting feedback from our listeners, and please help us grow by giving us a rating on your podcast platform of choice. Join us next time as we take the Wayback Machine to the 70s and explore another film from that decade. We'll see you then.
See you then.
Welcome to the wonderful world of kid. Sink's yours.